Hello. Today, 5 unappreciated insights from the Lean Startup by Ries. This is Quantified software. This is a classic in the startup book canon, so to speak. In general, my summary of the whole book is a quote in the book from Peter Drucker. Let me read it to you. "There is surely nothing quite so useless as doing with great efficiency what should not be done at all." So I think that's generally the theme of the book. How do you focus on doing the things that actually matter? It is influenced by 4 other books or 4 other thinkers that are also very influential. So lean manufacturing and in general, Taiichi Ohno's work on the Toyota production system. Steve Blank, 4 Steps to the Epiphany. Winslow Taylor, this is from early 1900s, the scientific management movement, and John Boyd, very much the observe, orient, decide, act loop. When you get into the book, Eric talks about a build, measure, learn loop, and it's very much based on Boyd's work. So in general, the book is very fun, very readable, very approachable, presents stories of success and failure, kind of the hero's journey of startup, makes some of these really agonizing meetings or decisions or measurements fun and enjoyable. Tells some personal stories, tells some stories of other companies. So that's kind of generally what's known about the book, and as well as there's a few other ideas that come in, very well known. I don't need to repeat them. Kind of the concept of a pivot or an MVP. Talking about actionable versus vanity metrics. Get out of the building, which is actually a quote from Steve Blank, but somehow it gets attributed to Eric Ries. So good for him. So I think there's 5 underappreciated insights in this book, and perhaps that's just because in my rereading, I looked back on my own failures in the past, and these are the 5 that feel the most new to me. But these are the 5 that I would make sure that other people look at. So my list of 5 underappreciated insights. So engines of growth. He lists 4 engines of growth, and this is fundamentally, how does a startup grow its user base, grow its customers? He says there's only 4 approaches to do that. I found some later writing, some later blog posts of Eric Ries's on startup lessons learned. I'll put these below in the show notes, where he talks about the pirate metrics for startups, the R model, and he seems to collapse the engines of growth into 3. So I will talk about those 3 right here. So the one that he kind of collapsed into all of them is word of mouth. So virality. So in virality, using the pirate metrics model, you really want to focus on referral first and then activation. And referral, you're going to live and die by it. And if you don't have referral, what are you doing? So any product that causes new customers to sign up as a necessary side effect of existing customers' normal usage. So if that's not true about your business, don't even pretend that you have a viral engine of growth. So paid. Your metrics are going to be revenue and acquisition. And you must be measuring LTV, because otherwise you don't know if whatever channel you're paying to acquire customers on is actually going to be effective for you. So this is one where you need a differentiated ability to monetize customers better than any other people who are bidding for the same traffic. So notice some interesting attributes here in this quote is that other people are going to be bidding for this traffic as well, and you need some sort of discontinuity from their economics to your economics. So either you need to be able to have a better LTV, or you need to be able to convert them better, or you need to be somehow selling to that segment in a way that is different than the people who are currently bidding against it. So if those aren't true about your business, then this can't be an engine of growth for you. And then the third is sticky, and you need to be measuring retention, and it just needs to be a live and die metric for you. And the quote is, "What those sites have in common is that something is causing their customers to become addicted to their product." So if you don't have a business or you don't have a site where people show up and then they just stay and they keep coming back, this can't be an engine of growth for you. So if you want one of these engines of growth, and in Eric's words, he says, pick one, that there's some unicorns out there that maybe they have two operating at the same time. Like, okay, great, like wonderful. But you need to have one that you decide is your engine of growth and that you just live and die by the metrics that are in there. So that's the first one. I think in my former startups, I didn't embrace this all the way to the point of just knowing deeply that, okay, we're in a sticky is our engine of growth. So we need retention to be through the roof, and measuring that and just living and dying by it, eating it, breathing it, measuring DAU, MAU, measuring cohorts, all of that just really, so that's the first one, underappreciated, I think, engines of growth. I think the other one is innovation accounting. In the book, Eric talks about innovation accounting several times and describes what it would be like, but doesn't quite describe a system for doing it, or doesn't quite describe it beyond that. And the MVP, which a lot of people talk about, and I think a lot of people have kind of meme fatigue around MVP, I think it's because it doesn't progress, or the MVP is a first step in the innovation accounting system. And innovation accounting, as I understood it from the book, is about using the MVP to create a baseline. And then every experiment or every hypothesis, and then you go and test that hypothesis, that you have some series of open items that you're tracking. You have inventory, hypothesis inventory that you're trying to prove, test inventory that you're trying to prove this hypothesis, and that you either close it out and say like, okay, that hypothesis, not true, didn't work, or you say, oh, it sort of worked, or, oh, it worked great, it was wonderful, we got the metrics to change, we're in this sticky, we saw the retention change, like you can trace it all the way through. So just having a way to track those tests of different hypotheses that you're doing and follow them all the way through. So I think that is something that is really important, and using that MVP to establish a baseline, but then immediately iterating on that and seeing what are the levers that you can pull to change from that baseline. And really doing the pivot persevere is, again, part of that innovation accounting. If you're not tracking each of those experiments, each of those successes, failures, or kind of pushes, so to speak, you're not going to be able to really have the pivot persevere conversation that he talks about. So third one, validated learning. And this was one that I kind of struggled. I thought I knew it, right? It's the ones you think that are always the problem. I thought I understood it, and then finally I got back to it, and it's the quote is, validated learning is always demonstrated by positive improvements in the startup's core metrics. That is what really finally clicked for me, is that validated learning is not like somebody saying, oh, well, we learned, or like we feel better about it, or we understand our customers better. You demonstrate that you understand your customers and their behavior better by taking an action and demonstrating a change in those core metrics. So if you're in the sticky engine of growth, you change something and you see that retention deflects and changes and goes on to a different trajectory for that cohort of users that you changed that thing for. So that is critical. And I think that that's something that for myself that I wish I had done more, has been able to connect those two. So actionable metrics, I think that's when people talk about vanity metrics, they kind of understand what actionable metrics are. But what vanity metrics are. But for actionable metrics, I think the big piece that was missing for me in my past was not having everything cohort. If you have a metric, but there's some argument about whether the thing you did affected some metric, well, you don't have actionable metrics. And if looking at the metrics doesn't immediately tell you what the next step is, or at least, give you some basis of saying, okay, well, here these three hypotheses could be true, we can go test each of those, then you don't have actionable metrics. So, split testing is critical for this. Doing it in real time so that it's not after the fact going back and trying to read the tea leaves or reconstruct the accident scene, so to speak. But really just in the moment, we split tested these two different things and we see that option A is better than option B. That is actionable. That is really actionable. And pivots. Somehow in my first few readings of this book, I missed the catalog of pivot types. Like I just somehow just didn't register, right? But that catalog of pivot types, I feel like is very, very useful because you could use it in your pivot persevere meeting. Say like, okay, well, should we consider any of these types of pivots to, should we zoom in? Should we zoom out? Should we change our customer segment? Should we change our channel? Should we change our customer need? Should we change our value capture or our engine of growth? Or right? So you can use each of these, but you can also flip it around and say, well, we should have a hypothesis and a starting point of each of these. And we should have clear agreement, on the founding team or in the startup or on the startup's board of we need an answer for each of these. What is the scope of the product? What is the customer? What is the customer segment? What is the need? What is the channel? What is our engine of growth? And then you create, again, like an MVP. That's the baseline from which you can then have these pivot or persevere conversations. It was a great reread for me. Really got me enthusiastic and excited. Went back, reread some of the other resources that Eric points to at the end of the book. He has a, join the conversation, kind of join the community. Found a lot of jumping off points there for some other things that we'll talk about in the future, but was really exciting to get back into that and to read this book again. Felt like, did I even read this the first time? Like, was I ever paying attention? So that was a little disappointing. Maybe this next time after this next startup, we'll come back and I'll reread this and I'll say like, okay, well, maybe I learned a few things this time and it wasn't all for naught. So, but yeah, great. Glad I did it. So that was my list of 5 unappreciated insights from The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. Hit the subscribe button. Keep learning. I'll see you online. This is Cam signing off.